Great. So I'm Wojszynski, and I did my junior project on what's in our food. So it goes into the two main additives that are put in our food today, which is MSG and aspartame. I'm going to explain to you what they are, why they're put in our food, the health risks, and how to avoid them. So first off, I want to begin with what is the definition of food. It's a nutritious substance that people or animals eat in order to maintain life and growth. So then we go to what is food today. It's basically like food-like products. It's artificial, processed, and low quality. In fact, when factory foods first came out, they tasted really bad until this discovery of this food substance, MSG. Its technical term is monosodium glutamate. And it's put in our foods as a flavor enhancer. It makes any of the lowest quality foods taste delicious. It's an addictive additive, and it is usually found in any processed food basically now, like chips, Cheetos, Cheez-Its, and it's even found in dairy products too. I just looked at my sour cream yesterday, and it also contains MSG. So, how it's made. It's made from the waste of sugar beets or vegetables, and it's made by bacterial fermentation. So the bacteria actually excrete glutamic, and then they take that and they chemically alter it, and they compact it into a unnatural substance. So, little known but about this is that it's actually an excitotoxin, and an excitotoxin is a chemical that overstimulates the neurotransmitters in your brain, causing them to become so overstimulated that they eventually die. So it's leaving you with a decreased amount of brain cells when you eat MSG. So now the FDA has even stated that the studies have shown that the body uses glutamate, an amino acid, as a nerve impulse transmitter, and that there are glutamate responsive tissues in other parts of the body as well. And then they go on to say that abnormal function of glutamate receptors has been linked with certain neurological diseases such as Alzheimer's, and injections of the glutamate in laboratory animals have resulted in damage to nerve cells in the brain. So, what does this do to the body when you eat it? Well, when you consume this substance, it actually goes past your blood-brain barrier, and it causes the most damage to the parts of the brain that are unprotected by the blood-brain barrier. So that also includes one part, which is the hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus is a small part of your brain. It's about you big, and it's located in the center. Now, the hypothalamus controls the motor function control, the food and water intake regulation, the sleep-wake cycle regulation, and it influences emotional responses. So if you ever hear from people that MSG makes you angry, that's why, because it influences your emotional responses. So along with this additive, there is a long list of side effects. So the short-term ones are usually headaches, flushing, sweating, facial pressure, numbness in the mouth, rapid heartbeat, chest pain, shortness of breath, nausea, weakness, blurriness, or tunnel vision, or blind spots. And the long-term ones are usually obesity, eye damage, long-term headaches, fatigue, disorientation, depression, Alzheimer's, and brain damage. So, here is an interesting fact. Scientists actually use MSG to replicate brain damage, and they inject MSG into the subject's brains, and within moments the neurons become overexcited and die. And they also inject it into rats to cause a condition of prediabetes, so they can test their diabetic drugs on them too. So here's an example. You have an MSG rat and a control rat. So since MSG is an addictive substance, you continually eat more of it. And that's why the food companies are putting it in their foods, because it's creating production sales. And so what they also found too is that the control rat was actually fed more than the MSG rat. And they found that MSG causes you to have excessive weight gain. So some people even link this to the American obesity epidemic, because it's put in everything. And then down here is a photograph of a rat's brain. So you see the brain, it's normal and fine. And then after one dose of MSG, that's what it looks like afterwards. So the little white flecks are all the dead brain cells that it's destroying. So Then we have Dr. Don Olney, who is a neuroscientist, and he had done a study on MSG in rats, and he found that it caused damage to the retina, and it also caused damage to the brain, and he found that it caused holes in the brains of rats. So at the time he was growing greatly concerned about this substance because it was put in baby foods. And so he raised a big enough commotion about it, and he was eventually called into Congress about this. And what happened was that he met with the food companies at Congress, and they voluntarily removed MSG from the baby foods because they knew they were going to have a public relations nightmare with possibly destroying children's brains, possibly damaging them. So, an interesting fact is that we humans are 20 times more sensitive to MSG than rats. So if you look at the picture of the rats and then think that that's what's happening to us, and children are 4 times more sensitive to it than adults. So that kind of led me to do my junior paper on how MSG affects childhood development. So I took some things from there, and what I learned was that it can be linked to brain damage, especially a fetus, mild dyslexia, uncontrollable anger, autism, schizophrenia, and ADHD. So then there's how do we avoid MSG since there's all these side effects? Well, we have been tricked by food companies into thinking that we actually have to just look on a label and it says no MSG, which is completely wrong. To completely avoid MSG, we actually have to know all the hidden names of it. So they can actually put MSG under whatever name they want as long as it contains 90% or less of the original product MSG. So the top ones are usually monosodium glutamate, glutamic acid, calcium glutamate, anything that says hydrolyzed, anything that says like yeast extract, yeast nutrient usually contains MSG. Then there's soy protein concentrate, protein whey, anything that says enzyme modified or anything that even says enzyme usually contains it, and fermented because it is a fermented product. So I did a survey because I wanted to know how much students actually know about MSG, and I had 40 students who turned in the survey. So half of the students there actually knew it was MSG. It was a tie. 50% knew it was in junk food, and 25 students knew it had different names. It wasn't labeled clearly as MSG on the label. But only 2 students actually could name some of the hidden names, and with the information I gave them on the survey, they assumed they were consuming it weekly, but in reality, if there was only 2 students who knew any of the hidden names, they were probably consuming it daily in every meal. So, and only 12 people were concerned with its safety. I also put up posters explaining what MSG is, what an excitotoxin is, the side effects, and some of the hidden names to educate the students here. And then I'm going to move on to aspartame. So aspartame is an artificial sweetener. It's usually in diet sodas, sugar-free gum, Crystal Light, low-calorie drinks, and anything that says low calories, diet, sugar-free, or reduced calories usually always contain aspartame. So it is also an excitotoxin just like MSG. It overstimulates the neurotransmitters in your brain, causing them to die. And it contains 43% aspartic acid, which is an excitotoxin, 50% phenylalanine, which is an excitatory neurotransmitter, also an excitotoxin, and 10% methanol. So, when you consume this substance, it actually turns into formaldehyde in your brain. And formaldehyde is known as or classified as a known human carcinogen, so a cancer-causing substance. And it's actually originally used as a disinfectant, a paint stripper, and an embalming fluid. So when people drink this, they're actually causing cancer and embalming themselves from the inside out. So when morticians, actually this is really disgusting, but sometimes I have to crack my head open because it affects most of the brain. They can smell the formaldehyde in the body. So that's kind of a disgusting fact. And then it also contains phenylalanine, which is your excitotoxin. It can cause emotional behavior issues, and for people with PKU, the people who are unable to digest glutamate properly, it can cause mental retardation, brain damage, and seizures, especially in young children. So, you combine those two excitotoxins together along with the formaldehyde, which is an embalming fluid and causes cancer, you have a chemical cocktail. And when the substance was first introduced, over a 6-month period of time, the brain tumor rate rose 10%, the diabetes rate rose 30%, and the lymphoma rate rose 60%, which is a big jump for lymphoma. Okay, and also, since this is such a toxic substance, it contains 92 side effects. So some of which are blindness. The formaldehyde can actually cause you to go blind if you drink it straight. Hearing impairment, epileptic seizures, migraines, depression, shortness of breath, insomnia, nausea, hives, loss of control of diabetes, which is interesting because this is advertised as a diabetic product. Irreversible brain damage, birth defects, and for people who are sensitive to this, death is also one of them. And now 75% of complaints of a food additive going to the FDA, or sent in to the FDA, all come from aspartame. So, I also wrote a part of my junior paper on aspartame and how it causes birth defects. I found that it can be linked to brain damage, eye damage, and mental retardation. And an interesting quote that I found was that aspartame disrupts fetal development by aborting it or inducing defects. And if a live child is born, aspartame may have damaged the DNA of the baby, cursing future generations. So, then we go to the topic of how to avoid it. And luckily, this is a lot easier to avoid than MSG because it only has a few other names. So first they put it under NutraSweet, and then now they're putting it under AminoSweet. And usually you see like the little packets of sugar at a restaurant that say equal, sweet and low, spoonful, and equal measure are all a concentrate of aspartame. So then I also did a survey. And out of the 40 students who handed in their surveys, I concluded that 21 students didn't know what aspartame was, which was basically a tie too. 21 students did know what it was in. They just assumed it was in diet sodas. That's what a lot of them wrote in. Students are consuming it on a monthly basis out of the information that I gave them. But this may increase because schools are only allowed to have diet sodas, like for a vendor machine in schools, and that's what we're getting pretty soon, so it may increase. And 50 students reported having reactions to the substance. So I also had the posters put up about aspartame, the hidden names, what an excitotoxin is, and the side effects also, but I was not able to include the 92 side effects. And so how I got into this project is actually because I am intolerant to MSG and aspartame. I noticed probably around 12 years old or younger than that I started having reactions to gum, sugar-free gum, and started having reactions to chips when I ate a lot of them. And so I would get nauseous, I would get migraines on my temples, blurriness around my eyes. Like one time my sister was walking by, I couldn't even see her until she was in front of my face because this was completely blind. I got really bad pressure around my eyes. I couldn't think or focus, and I had dizziness and weakness. And since then, since learning about this, I've kind of been able to diagnose myself as, I'm intolerant to MSG and aspartame, so I've avoided these foods. And since I've gone, MSG and aspartame free, I haven't had any of these symptoms anymore. And I can think really well, my brain processing is actually a lot better than it used to be. So that's really nice. All right, and then I want to come to the conclusion. So, are we eating and drinking nutritious substances in order to maintain life and growth? Well, that's not really the case anymore, because in fact we're consuming foods that are linked to brain damage, birth defects, obesity, all sorts of diseases. We're embalming ourselves from the inside out when we drink diet substances, and we're poisoning ourselves with these toxic additives. Okay. So here are my resources. Here is my resources continued. And more resources. Okay, so I would like to thank Dee, my advisor, for helping me with this project, the junior team, my mother for telling me to go to sleep every night and not staying up and working on this project, Sam Aylander, she helped me with quite a few of the things, Aria, she helped with posters, and Jackson, because he watched my presentation and helped me correct it. All right, are there any questions?
Yeah, did you just say, after telling us all the reasons why not to drink diet soda, that they're putting a pop machine that only has diet soda?
Yeah, because it was some rule passed with Michelle Obama that you can have sugar substances. You have to have diet substances.
Can you put in juice or something?
We have water. Yeah, it has to be sugar-free.
Okay, well, water, sugar, that doesn't
Nothing
make
like
any sense.
supporting.
I mean, I highly doubt that anybody's actually gonna get it because by talking to like the students here, they all hate diet soda. It tastes really bad. I don't like it anyway. Yeah.
So it's not happening unless somebody decides it's not.
It's already been passed.
Who passed it?
The student council.
Did they not watch her thing?
No.
No, they passed it before I had this.
Before she had the chance to get the
I actually, I actually gave Lloyd a bunch of information on the you know that one junk food machine that I did the project on?
Yes,
It's not junk food,
yes.
it's like healthy food, like dried apples and things like that, and like all natural, like fruit juice and stuff. I gave him all the information for that, and they were just like, no, not interested.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, so I guess then you have, the
Sydney,
option
you
is
need to
not
do a recall. You need to take your information and have them stop.
So what will happen though if, obviously none of you will want to drink it, so what
There's a
happens
pop
if
machine
there?
in town that doesn't contain.
Right, but what will, I mean, why is the pop machine coming here? Are they thinking they're gonna make money on it? Is
Well,
it just for
I
the
think
students?
6 years ago, we had a regular pop vending machine in the school, and student Congress actually removed it. And so they're like, why don't we have it here? Why do we have to walk uptown? And now we can't have the same thing, but they're getting it anyways. It's
So so nobody's making money on it?
I don't think it'll be very lucrative, to be
Maybe you
honest.
should educate Michelle Obama.
Exactly.
I think let's go back to the source here of
Yeah,
obesity, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe she could do something with getting it out of the food that our kids are eating.
Eating. That's
What were you gonna say?
I was on
Just make it
student
all
congresses, and they were saying how if they sold 15, or not 15, if they sold